Hey folks, this is the vlog for Star vs. the Forces of Evil, episode 2, which is Matchmaker and School Spirit, School Pride, something like that. If you're wondering where episode 1 is, I actually did a vlog for it as a commission some time ago, so I'll link that in the description. So I've seen, prior to this, the first episode and I think the 4th episode. Those were the ones that were commissioned, I think. So I've not seen most of this show, and so I'm going to go through all of what I haven't seen. I mean, it continues to be entertaining. It's not at all it's not a show with depth to it so far, but that's okay. Stuff can be light, stuff can be fun, which is not to say that fun stuff doesn't have depth. I mean, there's plenty of shows that manage both. Steven Universe comes immediately to mind. Then again, basically anything positive I could possibly say about any show Steven Universe comes to mind, because Steven Universe is amazing. But that aside, the show is what it is, and it's fun, and it has fun with what it is. It's definitely going for a particular style of animation. It's got sort of, animation-wise, an early 90s vibe, I think. With the monstrous creatures and the silly leader, that feels like an 80s, early 90s cartoon villain. Your Shredder, your Skeletor, that kind of villain. But the general, like the way it's broken up into segments and the general silliness of it reminds me of stuff like, a little bit Ren and Stimpy, but more than that, I'm thinking stuff like, the Australian cartoons, I think they were. Cow and Chicken, Rocko's Modern Life, that kind of thing. Even like Animaniacs, in a sense. It's less of an anthology series and it's more adventure, high school kind of a thing, whereas Animaniacs was basically an animated vaudeville act. But it's got some really solid antecedents, this style of animation. It's just not as common nowadays. Or maybe it's just not the stuff I'm watching, because I say it's not as common nowadays, but then I think that's basically the same school as something like Gumball, which I don't watch. I've seen 1 or 2 episodes. But from what I've seen, that's the school it seems to be drawing on. And maybe it's because I watched so much of it when I was 10, 11, 12, because that's how old I was when it was coming out. Actually, I think the Australian cartoons might have been a little later, but certainly I was around puberty when, like, Animaniacs came along, all of those shows. So, early 90s. And maybe that's why I kind of see it, and I'm like, oh, this is stuff I've seen before. This is not super interesting to me because it's stuff I've seen before. But I kind of have to move past that, because there is stuff here I haven't seen before, and there is stuff here that's being done really well. It's just kind of this instinctive, oh, I know this style, this structure, this way, this approach. I think, in a way, it was the same problem I had with Over the Garden Wall. That it was so rooted in particular styles that are familiar to me from my childhood that it felt done. It felt stale. but Over the Garden Wall definitely wasn't. There was definitely a lot of stuff going on there once I gave it a second chance. And I am going to make a conscious effort to do the same for Star Wars: The Forces of Evil. That said, School Pride was kind of what I expected the show to be based on its pilot. It was not super... I mean, it was fun, and it was funny, but it's not something that I feel I have a lot interesting to say about, because it was exactly what I expected the entire show to be, and was happy to very quickly learn that it wasn't. Which is... stars the alien outsider thrust into normal everyday stuff on Earth, familiar to the children watching, and she messes it up in funny ways. She misunderstands in funny ways. It's Amelia Bedelia, but a magical girl and monsters. Are there ever monsters in Amelia Bedelia? I don't know. I don't remember. It's been too long. I was like 7. In fact, I don't think I ever really read them at all. I think it was one of my sisters that did. I just kind of gathered from osmosis what they were. Anyway. The first episode of the pair, though, the Matchmaker, that was actually a lot more interesting to me because that was neither of the two plots I saw the show exploring at first. It was not Star brings alien elements into the Earth and has to, and wackiness ensues, nor was it Marco brings Earth to an alien environment and wackiness ensues. This was much more of a collision in the middle, which I found interesting. Because that moves it away from Earth normal, space wacky. Because the teacher is seriously weird. The teacher is, like, she's drawn in a deliberately grotesque way even before she becomes a troll. And I'm using that term advisedly. I'm not using that term to mean the way it's often used, just disgusting. I'm using it specifically to mean a particular way of doing art. Something is grotesque when it is deliberately exaggerated in ways that cross boundaries, in ways that go outside of what is normally considered good taste. So she is drawn to be just repulsive. Her features are massively exaggerated to be just awful. And that could have been, because she's a fat woman, that could have been done in a very misogynistic way. It could have been done in a way that was like, oh, look at this ugly woman. Ugly women are funny. Ha ha ha. But what's interesting is she clearly doesn't think of herself that way. She has a positive body image before she's transformed into a troll. And we can tell because of her reaction to being transformed into a troll is to be horrified by her looks. She screams, "I'm hideous." Which suggests that she felt positively about how she looked beforehand. Which, first of all, it suggests that how she sees herself is not how the audience is seeing her. The audience is seeing her more like the kids are. And they're middle school kids. They're going to be cruelly judgmental. It is middle school, right? I'm pretty sure it's middle school. It might be high school. Pretty sure it's middle school. Either way, they're adolescents. They're going to be cruelly judgmental. And, I like that she's allowed to be depicted as someone who cares about her looks and is upset about having them changed. Just because she's depicted in a grotesque way before her transformation doesn't mean that that's how she'd depict herself. Because part of what the grotesque does is, by showing something as crossing the boundaries, it tells us where the boundaries does. The grotesque can be a very regressive form of art, even though it's all about subversion and going outside of societal norms. In a way, it can be very regressive because it depicts the normal by showing us the abnormal. By declaring something and treating something as abnormal, it helps define the normal, which then makes it easier to reject the abnormal. A good example is that, fatness is equated with being grotesque. That helps normalize thinness and abnormalize, I don't really think that's a word, but we'll go with it, fatness, which, perpetuates a cultural bias to favor thin over fat that has a lot of, real-world implications. But, this is kind of resisting that. You see it also with, blanking on his name, but, Marco's two friends, the fat nerd and the thin nerd, the fat nerd. He is grotesque in the way he comes onto that girl in the hallway. But what's grotesque is not he's fat. What's grotesque is he's stripping half naked to come onto a girl in the hallway. It's his behavior. His behavior is depicted as gross. And, the girl slaps him in response, and slaps the face he drew on his belly, which is a very funny gag. The slapping, I mean. But the point is that it's his behavior that is depicted as being the issue. And again, I like that. I like that because what we see throughout the episode, the teacher is depicted as already being strange in her obsessive pursuit of romance and her taking it out on the students and the grotesque way she's drawn. And it moves us away from Earth normal space weird, because the whole episode is sort of from Star's point of view. She's really not the outsider in this one. She's the she's the titular matchmaker. She is really, in that one episode, almost, normal. It does a much better job of kind of breaching the boundaries of what is and isn't normal. And it reaches across and it says, everyone and everything is strange. It says that it's a matter of point of view. Which, now that I think about it, really does kind of lend a different aspect to the next episode. Because we get, Star's misunderstanding, I almost said Starfire. Star's misunderstanding of football as combat isn't really a misunderstanding. Like most competitive games, football is sublimated warfare. It's less sublimated than both, let's face it. There's a lot of full body contact, people wear armor, you know, it's basically jousting with the lances taken away. It's people in armor tackling each other across a field. Trying to get into the enemy's home base. Basically. All it really needs is weapons, and suddenly it's a war game. Just a straight up war game. So she's not really misunderstanding so much as seeing through to the real point. You know, the attitude, the school spirit is junior jingoism. It's, you know, we're the best. We should win. Why? Well, because we're us and they're them. You know, it's the same attitude that on a national level drives wars. It's tribalism, pure and simple. You support the home team because it's the home team. You support your school's team because it's your school. There's no reason for it. You know, there's no reason to prefer your school. You know, you don't gain anything when your school wins a football game. You get kind of a fragmented, reflected sort of pride, because unless you were on the football team, you did not contribute to winning that game, so you don't really get to take pride in the victory. But you're encouraged to do so anyway, because it's practice in seeing your school, your town, your country, your tribe as an extension of yourself. And then you're encouraged to apply the basest, most childish sort of, you know, toddler mine attitude. You know, every game must be won. Everything you desire must be, you know, everything your nation desires must come to it. Every competition it enters, it must win. Or else, well, you didn't win, and then you're sad. And, you know, it doesn't matter that it doesn't mean anything to you or yours. It doesn't matter that it's a wasteful exercise. You know, I'm talking about war now. You know, war is wasteful, destructive, pointless, but we're still supposed to go rah, rah, rah and root for the home team. So Star really didn't misunderstand. It's just that we're very strange. So it's two strangenesses, our strangeness and Star's strangeness, juxtaposed. And we see that with Marco's weirdness over the mascot. We see that with, okay, not a grown man, a child, but still, the bizarre, and constantly pointed out as being humorously bizarre, pride that what's-his-name takes in wearing the possum outfit. You get the Spirit Squad and the, you know, little tyrant that runs it. These are all familiar, typical, normal high school things. But in this light, they become very strange. And that's actually really cool. It's something that the best science fiction and fantasy can do is to make, you know, not just to make the familiar strange, or the strange familiar, but to make the strange and the familiar reflect each other, to make them be the same thing. Because what that does is it gives us a different way of reaching across the boundary between normal and abnormal, between self and other. It gives us a way to say, well, the other is the self. You know, the team from the rival school aren't faceless, hulking brutes. They're a bunch of scared kids getting attacked by monsters just like everybody else. Yeah. So I thought I didn't have much to say. I thought this show wasn't going anywhere. But then once I started talking, I found I did actually have some things to think about. So that's very cool. Hopefully, I didn't just, say everything there is to say. Hopefully there'll be more. I think there probably will. But I look forward to the next episode and seeing what this show does next. So yeah. Thanks everybody who asked me to watch this one. I'll be making my way through the rest of the series. So I believe that's 13 episodes, and there has not been a second season as far as I know. So yeah, I've already done 2 episodes. This makes 3, so 10 more to go. Bye!